I just watched an incredible video by BA Recovery about boundaries. It's probably the best video I think I've seen on boundaries at what point I am in my life right now. There was one thing that I wanted to add to that video, and I'll post the video below here. But there's one thing I wanted to add to it. It's a 45-minute video, and I'm looking at the transcript here. By the way, for those of you who don't know, you can look at the transcript of any video on YouTube. I say any video, most videos on YouTube, by clicking on the three dots by the plus and the arrow, and you can read it if you need to go back later. And they're usually available a couple hours after that. So I'm looking over the transcript, and I'm trying to find exactly what she was talking about. Was how I wanted to explore the motivation for me, for that extra push, if you will, for me to like get my boundaries straight. And one of them, and not everybody can do this, so I'm going to speak to a specific demographic here. I'm going to speak to you that have kids. And those of you that have kids, a lot of times, because we're so used to doing things for other people, for doing things for them, we'd rather put ourselves last, put them first, kind of that people pleaser thing. What you can do is, and this was a struggle for me, but I was able to kind of use this as that extra push, and that is to, if you're not going to do it for yourself, do it for your kids. So when she talks about boundaries and having an inner circle and setting standards, she calls them standards. What I did in my case was I did enough reading and counseling and learning to know that my kids are really my first priority. It's my higher power, and then it's my family. It's me, and then it's my family. But my kids, and they were in their teens at the time, and preteens. They're looking at my behavior for their future. So the kids are modeling what I'm doing. They're observing what I'm doing. And if they see a dad with no boundaries that just lets people walk all over them and just gives and gives and gives and gives, I can see a lot of those things in my kids nowadays, but I think it would have been a lot worse if I'd have just progressed down the road of no boundaries and just not getting healthier. That was my extra push to get healthier, because the kids are looking at us. Your kids need you, especially with somebody that's an abusive partner. The kids need to see a healthy role model. In fact, what I was told with a counselor is that I had to be the love of two people in this relationship that my kids have, because the kids really didn't have the love from their narc. The love that they had wasn't really love, but there's a lot of words that people call it. It's called conditional love. You do things so mom doesn't get upset. And mom kind of has this attitude, and I grew up with this too. Not necessarily in my household. I had I had a little bit different scenario. I had more absentee parents that were absent emotionally. But the kid next door, he felt like he expressed this in so many ways. When you're 10 or 12, you don't really discuss the psychological aspects of, verbal abuse. But I could tell that the kid had a conditional love, where if he didn't clean the kitchen, his mom would get so upset and mad. But his mom never gave him that, like, just went over and hugged him and gave him that reinforcement. She was always kind of a show mom. Like, she would try to be like nice around the adults, but I guess when you're 10, the narcissistic kind of problematic people, they just see you as just like a piece of furniture. They don't even try to impress you, So that's one of the things that when I was younger is that you go to other people's houses, and when you're 10, like I said, the parents, they think you're just a little peon. They don't really think you have any feelings or everything. But it's funny to see how they would feign and be all that they're not in front of the other adults, right? Like around my mom, I could see her kind of up her game, and when we go over to his house, she'd be like just kind of like sleeping on the couch, or just kind of like, just in her little, like just, I could just sense it. And again, as a kid, I don't have all these descriptions, these verbal, these accurate, an accurate description. All I know is the feeling I got was that it was so much different from my folks, because my folks loved, but they just didn't always have the time to love. They were, my dad worked third shift a lot, and he wasn't there a lot, and just some other things where they just weren't as emotionally there. But this kid was getting abused. I mean, he was like, if you didn't get this, and then the father would whip, and he was different. He was very short with people. He was just like, he'd say his thing and then he'd be done and he'd go drink his beer and watch his football games. It was like, yeah. So, but my main point again is to use your kids is maybe that extra push that you need to maybe make some changes. And you can involve your kids. Your kids don't have to see, I'm talking to me, but if you're like me, your kids don't have to see you perfect. In fact, your kids kind of want to see you struggle. The narc is never going to let the kids see. The narc never lets you get intimate. So the kids really don't know. The kids think that's how people are. And so when you show them a sign of strength, of love, and when you practice that day to day, when they see you taking care of themselves, they internalize all that. They begin to take care of themselves too, because they think that's how people are. And one of the big things is my daughter, who at the time was 15, she was just starting to like date guys. And so I really made it a point to learn what a healthy guy was. And one thing that we always did, and it didn't matter if it was my weekend or my ex's weekend, because there was this, I wouldn't call it a loophole in the divorce law or whatever, but there's a thing where in my state where I think if they're over 12, it was some age that my kids were both at, but if they're over 12, the kids can decide where they want to be. Well, we can set rules up, it'll be here or here, but if the kids ultimately say, I want to be over at mom's or I want to be over at dad's for this period of time, they can do that. And so I had built, by that time, when the divorce was toward its ending stages, and I didn't really know when it was going to end because it felt like it was going to go on forever, but when it got to be near its ending stages, my daughter and I had established a pattern where I was taking her to church every Sunday, and it didn't matter if it was my weekend or my ex's weekend. That was so key because we had to have that time we had the windshield time driving to church. A lot of times we went out to lunch afterwards, but it wasn't something that she had to do. It was something that, because I was showing, it was almost like she needed that extra touch, that love, that spiritual connection, because she wasn't going to church with the narc. And what's funny is, when I started taking her, when she started wanting to go on the weekend, she was with her mom. I said, well, you got your mom that weekend. She says, well, Dad, I can go anytime I want, and if you want to go, I'll go. It's funny how I did that for about 3 weekends, and then the narc wanted to take her to church like early, like 8, and my daughter's not a morning person, and so that worked out once. And then I think the narc wanted to show like, well, I can take him to church. It was almost like a show thing for her, because narcs have to look like, they're more concerned about how they look than what's actually happening. So using the kids. And I know not everybody has kids, and I get that. I mean, I have cousins and stuff. They never have kids, and that's fine. I'm just really relating to the people that do, because when you throw kids in the matter, it's also so for some of you, like, oh, that's so great. If I had kids, that could motivate me. Well, when you have kids with a narc, you basically have a lifelong relationship with a narc too. I mean, because they are the parents and stuff. So it's kind of a double-edged sword if you're thinking about, well, gosh, if I had that. But anyways, yeah, so your kids are going to watch you. They're going to model you. And all these little things that go on with the narc, they can be moments to teach the kids. So I would go through things, and a lot of things I didn't even have to teach. Like, I didn't have to sit down with my daughter and say, oh, hey, when this happens or whatever. And by the way, I didn't speak bad of their mom. I never spoke bad of their mom. Well, I say I never. I did once, and I learned not to do that again. But because it really upset my daughter, and this was about a month after the divorce papers were filed, and we were still living together, like the ex and I. And she was going to Vegas, and I said, Mommy's out with her boyfriend, and my daughter wrote me a one-page letter right there, right then, and said, Daddy, we don't need to hear this. You know, we're not your counselors. You know, blah, blah, blah. We love our mom. We love you. And man, she just, man, it really touched my heart. And so anyways, I did that once. Okay. So getting away from that, but your kids are going to model you. They're going to, you don't have to necessarily say things. You don't have to, when I say use them as teaching moments, what's going to happen, at least what happened to me is, at least the last year when I've gotten a lot healthier, is my daughter will want to show me things. She'll want to show me YouTube, okay? Because teenagers don't watch a lot of TV, at least in my household. They and their friends, they all watch YouTube pretty much. They're on YouTube. They watch this. They'll watch shows on Hulu. They watch shows basically when they want to watch them, what they want to watch, how long they want to watch it for, little bits and segments. So she brought this video to me. It was of this Cake Boss, or it was something where they go into these. No, I'm sorry, it wasn't Cake Boss. It was a restaurant show where Gordon Ramsay goes into these restaurants, and he like redoes the restaurant to save the restaurant. And then, you know, it shows what they did and how they changed the menu and how they added, you know, changed the building and painted and all this. And they do it with like in a couple days. Like they plan it out and then they go in there and rush it, and then it supposedly saves the restaurant. And they've done about 100 of these episodes. Well, my daughter wanted to show me this episode of Amy's Kitchen. I think that's what it was called. And Amy's Kitchen is a pretty unique episode because there's a girl named Amy who owns a kitchen, and she's a total narcissist, big time. If people don't like her food, she tells them to leave. And she told Gordon Ramsay basically to leave. So Gordon Ramsay, out of doing 100 episodes or something like that, this was the only person he tried to help. He went in there and he looked around at the film crew. They already set the cameras up. They've been into it for a week, you know, because they have to film it. So they have all these cameras. They install them everywhere. And he looked around at everybody. He says, "Well, we can't help you." And she's like, "Well, you can't help me, you know, then leave." And so they left. They pulled their cameras out, and the whole episode was just her just putting roadblocks in front of everybody. And basically, if they didn't do it her way, it was the highway. I mean, it was a really good episode to watch in terms of learning behavior. But what was funny is my daughter had wanted me to see this. She doesn't really sit down with me and go, "Hey, Dad, let's watch TV together." No, we go out and we usually go out, like I said, to church, or we'll do lunch, or after her choir performances, we'll hang out. So I don't try to like force the kids on a schedule as far as, you know, we need to talk now, or but when we're over at dinner, we all sit, we pray, you know, just little things like that. But what was cool was she sat down with me and she wanted me to watch this girl named Amy and how crazy she was. "Dad, look at this girl. I mean, isn't that just crazy?" And so we watched the episode together, and there was a bunch of teaching moments in there. And I think what my daughter was doing was she saw the problematic behavior. Of course, she's not going to say, "Mom's got problematic behavior, Dad." And you know, it's too much for a 15-year-old. It's really too much, because that's their mom, that's their parent, that's their God, right? When you're that age, you don't have any, you're developing more independence, but you still don't have that sense that you have a lot of choices. So she's showing me this, and we were discussing how, wow, if she'd have done this, or if she'd have been more accepting of this person, you know, so throughout the video, we were pausing it, and she was asking me questions, and I thought that was awesome. So not only was my daughter like modeling some of the things that I learned, but she was also asking questions. She was very active. She's very smart, so she's taking all this in. So I was blown away by that, and I thought, why does she want me to see this TV show? I mean, I don't really watch a lot of TV, so when she's like, "Let's watch this TV," I said, okay. And by the way, I know my daughter's love language, and it's quality time. Find out your kids' love languages. In fact, read that book, The 5 Love Languages, that changed my life, and that was about maybe 9 years ago. What's funny, my narc read the same book and used it as a manipulation, like, "Well, I know their love language, so I'm going to talk about this." I mean, there's different ways of looking at the book, right? The book is there to help. So, boundaries, great video, a frank discussion on boundaries. She just published it this morning. Highly recommend it. I'll post the link here. And thank you, BA, for making some awesome videos. I can't say enough about her videos. She's very wise. I tell her, I say, you're very wise beyond your years. I mean, she's like in her 30s, and she's got like the wisdom of like a sage. I don't know. Like, she's just very wise beyond her years. And so you can't always judge a book by their cover, you know, just because somebody's young and whatever. But she's gone through a lot. I've watched some of her earlier videos. She's gone through so much, but because of that, she's got so much wisdom to share. And I can't learn enough from her. I mean, I just can't wait for the next one to come out. So awesome video on that. So I'm going to put the link here. And for those of you that have kids, this can be a great way to motivate you to help your kids, which will help you. So you're still helping you in the long run, but it's okay to help you. And that's where maybe some of you aren't. Some of you think that's selfish. Well, if I just focus on me, then I'm not really... Well, if you're not there yet, even though you should be, really it should be you. It should be put your oxygen mask on first, then put it on your kids. Because if you don't put yours on first, you may pass out and your kid may die too, because you're not, you know. So that's how it should be. But I know for a lot of us, it's still like, well, I got to put his on first. So it's just, and I know it, I get it, because unless you have kids, unless you know how much of a drive they are. I mean, our kids are our creations, right? So I mean, they're a great way to motivate. I'm not saying use your kids. I'm saying do this for your kids if you're not gonna do it for yourself at first. It'll just give you that extra motivation, and you'll all be so much better off. All of you. And give the love that maybe the narc never was able to give. You know, the narcs, they're just narcs. They had a bad childhood. I mean, they basically didn't get a lot of the stuff that you and I got. The big thing is empathy. Empathy is a gift. Not everybody gets it. And so you just got to be the one that has it. But you can teach it. Like when you separate from the narc, because you have to give more love, but you can give more love, but you can have boundaries around that love, so that you're not spread out. You're not giving it to this guy over here who you don't even know you're letting in, or this person over here at work who's taking advantage of you. You're driving him to the airport every other day because, oh, well, I can't afford Uber, you know, and so you don't have time for your kids. No, if you set up boundaries, that's even going to help you have more time with your kids, because you're going to keep the people in your inner circle that matter, and it's going to be your kids, right? And so you're going to be able to get rid of all the extra noise and nonsense and just focus on your kids. And so, I mean, it just works out so well when you see the big picture and put it all together. At least that's what it did for me, and I just wanted to share that. All right, guys, I love you. We'll talk to you later.